And we're going.
The usual.
I haven't done it in like 2 episodes.
What? Done the we're going?
Yeah.
Who usually does it?
Me.
Him.
Oh.
But I didn't for a minute.
Oh, got it.
Well,
So
one
no
was a
did it.
continuation, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You shouldn't do it on conspiracies.
I didn't. Okay. Fair.
He was so focused and ready to go.
Yeah.
I loved that episode.
I can only imagine.
Welcome back to the #Wild podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm Susanna.
This is our guest, Megan. Thanks for joining us, Megan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Here we are again. We're going to dive in pretty quickly here. I don't think we have any intro topics.
Not that I know of.
No.
Wait. Oh, never mind. That's not an intro. What is that? Is that an intro?
I was going to say, is
This?
your wine?
Do
You're
you want me to do
holding
a
an
wine?
intro right there.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this.
There's like the whole bottle's here, the wine's here, but we're not going to address it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is a cannabis-infused wine that's been dealcoholized that I'm supposed to try and tell you how it is.
That's a big
So
pour.
we're just gonna wait for you to try it.
Like, that's the biggest pour to just try.
Right.
Again, not sponsored. But
Chug it.
no, the type of wine is called a sauvage, and that actually means wild. So I thought it was fitting.
Oh, that's very appropriate. You
I
should
love
chug
that.
it. I agree. I think you should
Chug it and
chug
then
the
tell
whole
us how
thing
it
and
is.
then let us know.
Can I smell it?
Yeah.
How does it taste?
What is
It's like grape juice, but not.
Well, that is wine. Is like grape juice,
Wait,
but
I'm
not.
confused. There's no alcohol in this?
Correct.
So what is it?
Well,
Weed?
there's like 0.5% alcohol in it. So yeah, they added THC to it.
Does it smell
it's-
like wine?
It does.
It's
yeah,
weird because it
they
smells
made-
like if beer and weed had a baby.
What would that be?
beer and weed.
Weed.
Bead.
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 Because they make that too.
It doesn't repulse me yet.
That's good. She's recovering from a hangover, if you were wondering. She does drink.
Is it not taste
Bruh,
good?
that's so
Did you try
sweet.
it?
That's so sweet.
Wait, let me smell it.
I mean, like,
It feels like we're passing some kind of before the spirituality episode.
Sure.
Passing the blood.
or like that stuff, the
What?
mushroom drink.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and have you seen
Ashwanga? It's not ashwanga.
I don't know what it's called.
What is it called?
Ayahuasca?
Yes.
That's the
Oh,
mushroom
thank God.
drink. I want to try that really badly, but I don't know if it
The one
fits
that
into
makes
the
you,
whole
like-
sobriety thing.
I think it doesn't.
Yeah.
It smells kind of like
Smells like
sparkling
beer.
grape juice that's gone bad or has beer in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
No, totally.
totally.
Totally fair.
Have you seen what's the movie about cults where they drink the mushroom drink?
The movie?
Well, I know it's probably not the only movie, but it's just the one I saw
know.
most
I don't know.
recently.
Which
It's the same
cult?
director that does Hereditary.
Crap.
Which cult was it referring to?
No, but
Definitely not craft.
it wasn't referring to. It was like a cult in Europe, and they do this. Is Midsummer.
Oh, that one. Yeah,
see
I
that?
did see it.
Okay, well then it's really kind of a moot point, but
No,
The
we,
whole-
we
the
like
whole-
a good movie review on
the whole
#Wild.
like the way that it was directed, it's if you like say that this table is in the screen, all of a sudden like things start to move on the table, so you feel like you're also tripping the whole time.
Okay.
So for like 2 days after, I would be staring at things and just see them start to move.
That's pretty cool.
But in the movie, they drink this mushroom drink the whole time, and so they're like constantly tripping.
I should look into that. Yeah, I have no idea what it is. But cults isn't actually a bad place to start with this.
Oh, hey. Yeah, we could start that.
Right, or drug trips.
Yeah, or drug trips.
You could start with that one.
Right.
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, I went on... I shouldn't have told y'all before.
No, you really shouldn't have.
You should have just laid it right.
Yeah, right.
now.
This morning I did DMT for the first time. It was quite an experience.
She casually mentioned earlier. I tripped on DMT this morning, and
He
we're
was
like,
yeah. He was like, I did some research. I listened to some podcasts.
Read
Read
a
a book.
tripped on DMT.
Just a little bit. We're like, wait, what? The research.
Really similar to the podcast.
I was trying to
dedication.
get myself to a perspective where I could discuss this subject because I
Oh my God.
I self-identify as an atheist, and I was kind of driven to that by the Catholic Church. My parents are both, well, they were both raised Catholic. They didn't raise me Catholic, but I came up going to church here and there, and I think that was probably good or maybe the worst thing that could have happened. I don't know, but I ended up, pretty much disbelieving the church at a pretty young age, like 12, 13. I was already convinced that everything that religion had to offer was fake. And so I'd really closed myself off spiritually. And it's been sort of a journey to try to get myself back to any sort of spirituality. And I'm still a skeptic of a lot of it. Like I want data. I want like scientific empiricism. I want to be able to go, this is what a religious experience is. It's neurochemical, it's biological. And I want to be able to point to all those things. And we can point to some of them. And I did a bunch of like reading and looking into this before we got into this. And I'll bring that up in a bit. But there's still a certain amount that we can't explain scientifically, and that bothers me.
Of course it does.
I'm just like genuinely not bothered at all by things I can't explain.
Oh, no, I love it.
Actually, I know. I was gonna say I actually find it completely comforting.
I feel like it's boring when you know exactly what's going on. Because
Right.
it takes away the magic of it. Like, there are some things, like, obviously we need to research and know, like flat earth and
Right.
But, like,
Flat Earth,
just bringing it back.
Flat Earth being one,
conspiracies.
right?
But, like, there's things that I feel like a lot of spirituality, a huge part of it is the belief system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's separate from like the system of religious beliefs, because like you're an atheist, right? Or would you
No.
describe yourself that way?
No.
No. How would you describe yourself?
I don't really. I mean, in the sense that I'm not really a fan of labels in general, because
Fair.
to me,
Yeah.
to pigeonhole and label things, it makes it seem like there's definitive answers, or there's
Yeah.
black and white, and I find that generally to not be true in life. But I mean, I also don't like to pretend like I know anything, because I feel like more and more every day I'm reminded I know absolutely nothing.
Fair.
But like I mean, definitely not an atheist. I definitely believe in a higher power, whether that be, I mean, people describe it as their own higher consciousness, meaning like the highest version of themselves, or whether that be the universe or whatever it is that, you know, moves the planets and the tides and the moon and all of that. So I generally will say God, just because it's one syllable, and I find
And
that easy to
understandable.
say.
Yeah. But God is also, like, it's like, I guess, subjective to every person, right? It's subjective to the word.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Totally.
the word God brings with it a whole bunch
So
of
much.
connotations. I prefer the term the universe, but I don't.
But
say,
I'm not really. But I don't believe in religion.
Sure,
Yes,
that's
I mean,
that's
I think
more
that's
what
where
I
you were
meant
getting
when
at.
I use the word atheist to describe myself. That's what I mean. I like the literalization of it, like anti-theology. Like I don't believe in any of the earthly religions, because well, I mean, there's something there, right? Like there's something to be said for the through line of religion. If they weren't tapped into something greater, I don't think they would have survived this long. There's something to be said for the survival of information. I said last week that I believe in Atlantis, and I don't necessarily... And I believe in Atlantis more because of the through line of the story, that the story has existed for thousands of years. I believe there's something there. I don't believe, like, I'm sure it's gotten twisted and like played telephone with and mangled. But I'm sure there was an ancient lost civilization and they were called Atlantis. I don't know the extent of like their technological capabilities or anything like that. But I mean, there are a whole number of lost civilizations. From way back that are somewhat unexplainable, but this isn't about lost civilizations.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
But
We're getting behind ourselves.
Bring it back.
We're going back to last week.
that, I mean, I think that does tie in a way, because
Yeah.
if you're talking about religion specifically, like the idea that, I mean, it bothers me in general. I think I get bothered in general by anything. Like, I don't like the word sin,
Same.
because
Oh, God,
the word
yeah.
sin to me implies so much, or can be inferred by whoever hears it, with so much judgment and rejection
Yeah.
of self and all of these things that come with it. And to me, like the idea of looking into another and judging their soul or their inner being, like I have such an issue with that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the idea in general that all of these religions are in of themselves different and like one-offs. I mean, it's crazy to me because they all are so similar. And if you talk about
Right.
ancient civilizations, like there's so much of Egyptian culture in Christianity. There's so much of, like, look at The Lion King. I mean, the story of the son and the brother who kills the other brother, not to spoil the movie, but, you know,
Spoiling The Lion King.
that's in a lot of religious texts. And I
Yeah.
mean, there are so many similarities that I think it's so, I personally don't believe that it was ever meant to be more than kind of this guide to unconditional love and to
Yeah.
morals and finding one's higher self. And that's one thing I actually appreciate about the Jewish religion culture, which in of itself is it's a culture and a religion, but they encourage asking questions. They say that
Right,
God
which
is
a lot of other
relationship.
religions don't.
Right.
So you should always ask questions. I like that a lot. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual through lines in religion. Like the flood is mentioned in a number of religions, like the great biblical flood. It's found in a lot of Eastern religions as well. Ascending to a higher plane, that's in almost every religion. And so I think there are, even if you strip away like the theology of religions, there's still truth there underneath, and that is what has sort of driven religion's survival. And nowadays, a lot of people are like us, don't believe in like a specific religion, but believe in some sort of higher power, higher being, and God is just the easiest like way to describe that.
I feel like also just like back in the day, religion was a way to keep, it was like a form of a law and to keep people in line. And nowadays that we actually have like real laws, it's a little bit different. We don't need to rely on religion in order to keep order of people.
Well, there's still the countries. I mean, Shiite law is still like in the Middle East. There's a lot of places where Shiite law, which is from the Quran, is their actual law.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm saying
find
more of
scary.
like, because I think what Christianity itself is like the fastest dying religion right now.
Really?
I believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's probably because so many Americans and I don't know, people who just like have access to the internet and
Computers?
ideas and science and a good education are giving religion, Christianity a hard look. And
Go off.
I know, right?
Damn. We just like are smarter now.
I like to
wow,
believe
I
it's-
did not say that.
You basically just did.
I just like to believe it's just
No
people are
offense.
becoming more awakened to their own inner power.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like to think.
Yeah.
That
No,
that's
I feel
what
like
it is.
more people are just woke,
Yeah,
as
totally.
we would like to
as we
Woke
say.
is the new religion.
put it in Rady terms.
Woke is the new religion.
Woke is the new
Well, that's what I
Christian.
appreciate so much about Nietzsche is that when he talked about God is dead, which he got so much flack for.
Yeah.
I mean, from everything that I've read, what he really meant by that was God, in terms of religion, used to inspire people, used to bring inspiration into people's lives, used to bring a sense of purpose into their lives.
Right.
And then it reached a point where the man-made aspect of religion, the control and the need to control people, the use of religion to control people, was actually causing the opposite. It was causing people to feel dead inside because they felt so encumbered by religion, by what God, quote unquote, had turned into. That's why Nietzsche said God is dead, which I love, because I think that it should be inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in the sense of thinking of, like, I'm not religious either. I'm spiritual as well. I was also raised in, it's weird because I wasn't raised Catholic, but my mom was Catholic and my dad wasn't really religious. But like in Portuguese culture, like we are Catholic. And like, you know, every time I see like my family from Europe, they're always like bringing me rosaries and stuff like that. Like I have one in the car because like my friend gave it to me when I was 15 for my birthday. And she was like, you know, whenever you get your first car, put this in there. It's like, it's going to protect you. But just the belief of her believing that was going to protect me,
Totally.
I believe it's going to protect me because I feel like it's her protecting me.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like when you give someone something, and this kind of ties into witchcraft, when you give someone something with an intention, that intention is going to like present itself and do what it has to do for that person, because you are giving a part of your energy in a form of, in a physical form. So now they have part of your energy in whatever way you want to. Like there's black magic and white magic.
Sure.
It depends on how you want to give the energy, but something like that, I believe they're always giving it to me in a light energy.
Right. Totally. I mean, it's all energy. I very much believe in that.
Yeah.
Oh, energy is a great way to talk about religion, or spirituality rather. Not so much religion.
Right.
And I was
But
going to say, can you even talk about religion in terms of energy? I just feel like it's so,
Yeah, that's hard.
it's so like, because I was also raised, I went to Catholic school.
yeah.
I have a rosary that was blessed by the Pope. I think they felt like I really needed it in school. But
Mood.
but I grew up, like my mom was Methodist, my dad was Presbyterian. I went to Catholic school, which is all very confusing, but
Right.
all very similar, except for when you stand and sit in church. It's really the only difference.
But I guess you could definitely mix spirituality with religion, because even though we are Catholic in Europe, we still believe in like going to witch doctors and having witches help
Really?
us. Yeah.
I feel like that's become very anti in America. Like Christianity was very
Absolutely.
anti, like
Yeah,
witch doctors.
Yeah,
and things
no.
like
So I mean, like we have, we're very. I don't know how to explain it, like, but no one like pushes it onto you. No one's ever like, you need to go to church, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's more of just like, like just be a good person. Like,
Yeah.
don't be a piece of shit. There's more morals to it than anything. I feel like a lot of my morals that I got from my family was, I guess, what they perceived as religion, but it was more of just like, don't someone over, don't be a person, like, like respect people, like
generally probably good advice.
yeah, exactly. But that's what I perceived as what religion was to me through them, because that's what they would teach me from it. It was never like, God's gonna punish you if you do this. Like they never ever like threatened me with like, God's gonna do this if you sin. Sin was never really a word that was used. But like if
That's
something,
cool.
yeah, but if something,
I wish I had experience of that kind of religion.
Sin and hell and that whole like damnation thing is kind of what drove me away from it in the first place.
yeah, and also it was very just like, but the thing is like I never grew up being like I'm religious,
Right.
but like for example, I feel like spirituality does tie into it, because like my great grandmother was a medium and a psychic, and so people would come to her for like healing. And she would help people pass on if they were in pain, and she claimed that she saw the devil in her garden, and she, if anything was going wrong in like a house and like windows were like going crazy and shit, she would go in with a priest and they would stop it. I feel like in Europe it's very mixed, in Portugal at least, and like I remember my mom telling me like, when my brother was young, he was always sick. And so she was like, we didn't know what was happening. He was always sick. Like, so we took him to a witch doctor, and the witch doctor was like, well, the witch was like, he has like the evil eye on him. Like he has like the look of jealousy or something.
They call that something in the Italian culture. They do a malocchio or something like that for it.
Something.
It's like an oil. There's 3 bowls, and I mean, I only know this because I have a friend who she actually does this. Her mom does it. It's to get rid of overlook.
Yeah, it's something that has to do with like if I guess my mom said like the most evil thing anybody can put on you is jealousy. And that's if like someone is super jealous of you, they can wish to rip everything away from you. And I guess like that's what was happening with my brother, because I guess like there were people in her town that were really jealous that like she had this beautiful son and like all this stuff. We lived in that really tiny like village town thing. People were whack. And so like she went to this witch doctor and she was like, he has knives in his back. And then she like explained what was going on. She did something like whatever to him, and then he was fine. He went from being sick for like months, different things all the time, and now the hospital. And now the same thing recently was happening with one of my cousins, her little boy.
Really?
Same thing was happening to him. We went to the witch doctor. They do this thing where they like get your photo or get you in person, and they analyze it for like a couple of weeks, and then they send out a letter, and they tell you like if it's something that's spiritually attached to you, if it's a curse, or if you're sick.
That's fascinating.
I had that. They actually did that for me when I went through my anxiety.
Yeah. What did they say?
So when I went through my anxiety, we were like to that point. We were like, my family was like, we're gonna ship you to Portugal to go to these witches. Like,
They just saying they couldn't send the photo?
yeah. So what they did, because I was like, do I have to go over?
Right.
Like, I'm down. Let's do this. Like,
Right.
I want an answer, because I didn't have an answer for like almost a year, and my cousin was like, hey, send me a recent photo of you. And we actually had them do it to Nick too, because he was going through anxiety as well. So we sent them our photos. They analyzed it for a couple of weeks, and they sent a letter, and they would work with it as well. Like in those times, they also like they help you through whatever you're going through for like a specific amount of time until they feel like you're starting to handle it on your own. And so the letter came back, and at this time I did not know what was going on.
Right.
Like still like a what the f- moment of like, I think I'm dying. Like, and I got the letter. My mom didn't open it. She let me open it. She came to California, and she was like, okay, like I want you to see it because I don't even know what it is. Yeah. So I opened it and I read it, and it basically said like, there's nothing attached to her. She is perfectly healthy, and she doesn't have a curse, but she is going through something that she is going to need to do on her own. And it's something like internal that she has to figure out. But she is going to get better, and it's going to get better, but she has to be the one that wants to do it.
So they were spot on.
They were spot on. Then when I found out it was anxiety, I was like, they knew.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me because I had to get through it myself.
Exactly.
Totally.
They weren't supposed to like tell me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they were 100% right.
That's cool. So you feel like the people that you were with were legit, but let me ask you this. Because there's the perversion of that, like healers who aren't really healers, who are just,
God, all over LA.
all over everywhere.
Psychic.
It's like the only city where like if you're an asshole, you're like, I'm sorry, Mercury's in retrograde. And everyone's like, oh, okay, no, I get it.
Oh,
yeah.
And then the full moon's coming up, and then got the third moon of the seventh house.
Jupiter's in the So I that part of that contributed for me to wanting towards disbelieving in spirituality was all the people who are manipulating it, psychics who are really just cold reading a room, or healers who
I went to a bootleg when I first moved to LA. That
Really?
was $250. I want my money back.
What happened?
Was
What
I'll let you
happened?
continue your story.
No, I want to hear this.
Oh, dude. Okay. So, because I'm so like, when I don't know something about like something new about spirituality, like I want to know it, and I'm just like, yes, like I want to meet an alien, so I just know like so much random about the universe.
But you don't want to meet a ghost, which I don't understand.
Well, because
why?
Because listen,
You've never had a ghost encounter.
I know, I definitely have, but I refuse to see it. I refuse to see it. Like I don't want to see it. I respect the out of you.
You can still feel it if you close your eyes and you refuse to see it.
Like, just because like it's so close to like my great grandmother, and I know she could do it, and I just like it's.
You're afraid of the medium.
It's there, and I refuse to tap into it.
So you feel like that side of you is present, that side of you that can connect to that energy.
But I don't want it.
I actually used to be
choose.
exactly the same way, and it was partially too because I always felt like I connected to dark energy.
But that depends on like what vibration
a ghost,
you
don't
were.
really get to control whether
That's
it's
true.
light or dark energy.
No, you do.
Okay.
You do. if you have like a dark presence that you feel like is coming near you, literally you can do something as simple as turning on a comedy. Because literally
it's the vibration that you're
happiness.
attuned
Wait,
to.
but that's not going to alter the presence. It'll just
No,
keep it away from you.
Yeah, like they
Well, you won't
like
resonate.
negative,
It's not in your disc, or it's not on your vibration. So
Yeah.
like if you then change your vibration, you no longer can resonate.
you can literally like turn it off. Like in the sense of like if you people like it's then they talk about this in like witchcraft as well, where like if you
He's like, that's not this episode,
No, it's
but it's spirituality.
but
So
it's coming. Okay, go ahead though. Sorry.
entities.
Oh yeah, okay. So if you're vibrating at like a low vibration, which is like, like anxiety, depression, sadness, things that just aren't doing you like any justice, or even drugs, alcohol, like anything that can suppress your energy, that's when you let dark things come to you. That's because, I mean, when you're sad, you get dark, which, there's a balance, obviously, to it. And so that's when, like, dark and negative energy, like in spirits, can come to you. But you can also kind of change it and be like, all right, like, I don't want to deal with that negative energy. So I'm gonna change my vibration at this time in order to like lighten up the mood, or like if you don't want to face that type of energy. Does that make any sense? I feel like
Totally.
you're
No, it
literally just looking at me like
But it has to do with spirituality too, because I mean all of that ties into like vibration and energy and law of attraction, and I mean what you are putting out, you get back.
100%.
Sure. For me, I think the first step towards me taking like any sort of spirituality in again was like a scientific track to it. Like the first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and that includes our energy.
It can only
So
be transferred.
our energy has to go somewhere when we die. And a certain amount of it is absorbed by the ground, eaten by earthworms or whatever. But there's still an amount of it that it's
Totally.
I mean, there's certain presence that leaves our body when we die, and it has to go somewhere. So that was sort of what opened the door to me coming back to spirituality after I had closed it. And I'm still not sure I'm really like clear on any of it. I don't really believe in ghosts, which is why I want to meet one, because that would be.
You want to be a believer?
I would love
It's a scary
to.
place
I would
to
love
be.
to be wrong.
I want to meet one because I don't. I'm good.
I'm not trying to go there.
Yeah, no, me neither.
He wanted to bring a Ouija board on here, and I was
no.
like, I'm like, you're going home with it. Like, hell no. And he was like, what if we do it somewhere else? I'm like, if you open a portal, they're going to come to you, and then
Totally.
they follow you.
Right. Unless you specifically state that you are not open to that.
And you just like, you have to do this whole thing to like make them like, to close the portal and make them go away.
Right.
You have to like banish them.
And we're back from our non-existent sponsors.
We're about to get some t-shirts.
Back from that commercial break.
Okay, question I have for both of you,
What's that?
because I'm still struggling with this, is how to interpret God. And I'll give you a chance to think about your answers because when I was in my DMT trip this morning,
Yes.
It's full circle.
This morning.
I felt as though I encountered that entity that people refer to as God.
Interesting.
And it was in the form of a female, and so I'm going to call her she. But she she showed me, like, I went into this vision, and she showed me all this stuff that I wasn't really comprehending. But some of it was like sacred geometry, some of it was landscapes and the universe and outer space. But then she took me up. The best way I can describe it is like an elevator shaft. And everything expanded, and my body, I couldn't feel my body anymore. It like fell away. And she seemed, first of all, like kind and gentle, and she was like guiding me. But then she seemed like she knew multitudes. and that's the only reason I knew that she was God or the universe or whatever. And I usually refer to her, he, it as the universe, because I don't believe in like a theological God, and it's easier for me to experience her, he, it that way.
It's a very politically correct way to.
But yeah, so I mean, if either of you could give me a little clarity on that, that would be nice. But I haven't encountered that presence, I don't think, ever before in my life until I did DMT. And I've done other hallucinogens like mushrooms or LSD and not encountered that type of presence. And like for me, from like a scientific standpoint, I want to go like, well, it was the chemical
Yeah.
that went into my brain and had that interaction with the neurons and in the temporal lobe and whatever. And I can like break it down into like detail like that because I've read about spiritual experiences and how they're triggered and how they manifest biologically, and that's great. But and so I've always come at it as like humans created God, not the other way around. But I'm open to input. I just wonder, I'm curious about y'all's experience with that entity.
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, that would have been my first question is what were you asking for clarity on? But if you're just asking for my own, because I would say that what you just described to me sounds like your version, your subconscious version of your highest self.
Right.
I was thinking like
my
a
highest
spirit
self.
guide as well.
Too, totally. It could have been. Yeah.
And those are the same thing?
No.
No, your highest self. I mean, your highest self also people call God, but like that gets tricky because then people are like, when you're calling yourself God,
We're
yes,
not Kanye.
in a way. But yes, in a
Because
way,
we're
you're
all
calling
part
yourself
of the
God
same-
because you're
Yeah.
all part of, it's all the highest energy, that is inside of you. It's inside of me. It's inside. So my highest self is a part of that collective consciousness of light energy. My highest self is always in that collective consciousness of light energy. Doesn't mean I'm always in that.
100%.
I strive to be, but like it's never going to happen.
None of us are.
Right, totally. But there are moments of inspiration in which I'm connected to it. I think the scariest part for me, because I think with the humans created God, the other way around, is it can go both ways. I was listening. I actually a teacher that I like a lot is Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, and I was listening to a conversation between Esther Hicks and Dr. Wayne Dyer earlier, and they were talking about how in the I forget which text it is, but Krishna.
Hindu?
Yeah, but I forget the name of the
okay.
text. It's like I'm gonna butcher the name, and then I'm just gonna be embarrassed. But
We have thought bubbles we add to the
oh,
videos.
okay, great. You can add that and pretend that I thought of it
Mm-hmm.
in that moment.
Definitely.
But they were talking about like, can you be inspired to do something negative? Like, can that come from God? Can that come from an inspiration or a read or whatever you want to call it from God? And the idea was that there's a difference between inspiration and motivation. So momentum comes from anything, right? Law of attraction is anything that you stay in will come to you. So what happens too is that you like say like you want to take revenge on someone. Well, you get that idea and then you start talking to other people about it and you start looking for or finding people who agree with you or who will somehow co-sign, which for lack of a better word, your desire to do that. And that desire gains momentum. And with every minute you spend thinking about it, talking about it, all of these things, it gains momentum and you get an idea from that momentum to take revenge. That could feel like it's inspired.
Right.
Because it comes from nowhere in that way. But it's not, because nothing negative or harm causing is ever going to come from God, your divine self. Yeah. And so there's a difference between like the way that Esther Hicks talks about is everything, you're always on discs.
Yeah.
And God is the highest flying disc. And wherever you are always on a disc. It's always going to gain momentum. That's law of attraction.
Okay. That's cool.
So no spirit. I don't, just in that regard, like, I guess to say that you're always aligned with some energy, but you can choose what it is.
Okay, so I guess I get that. What I don't get is because we are in these like bodies, right? That's like a limitation on being able to get to that plane, is it not?
Not necessarily.
I mean, what did we talk about earlier? Like how much of our brain, you would know this better than I would because I don't know facts like you do, but I don't know many people that do. But we use how much percentage wise of our brain?
See, that's like an interesting question, and it's not really that well known. In terms of like that, what you're getting at is that like we only use 10% myth that has been debunked. The 10% is like our prefrontal cortex. That's like our rational brain. It's like how we form thoughts and have conversations. And then the rest of our brain gets used, but in different unconscious ways. And the way we experience religion or, interestingly, like mystical experience, mystical experience or like drug trips, like the one I did, DMT, or runner's high, flow, they all kind of mimic each other in the brain. You get this sort of turning off of your prefrontal cortex that you don't get in a lot of other areas. And the reason your brain is doing that, it's just like an efficiency metric. Your brain is using so much energy to experience this mystical thing, or to near-death experiences too. They're the same. They all shut down that part of the brain, and then your brain gets flooded with a cocktail of neurochemicals, serotonin, oxytocin, anandamide, DMT. But DMT is more like only when you're dying near-death experiences. And
That's
so
what you had
that
this morning was a near-death experience.
Yeah, effectively.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you are transported away from your body, and there's no other chemical that really does that. But again, that's just your parietal lobe shutting down, because your parietal lobe is what creates the sense of self. And
Which is interesting because that would then be in effect saying that like you can have these experiences once you shut off that sense that
I was just going to say, because people can meditate their way into a DMT state
Correct.
of mind.
Yes.
It's just
it takes about 30,000 hours.
it's like, well, it's honestly like I feel like a lot of spirituality in that sense is discipline and getting rid of like the ego and pride and all these things that like society has like put on us.
Absolutely.
and that individual sense of self.
Yeah, in order to shed all of those like insecurities, in order to allow yourself to be that high, in that highest form of spirituality, in order to basically like surrender yourself to it and be like, this is okay, and this is what is going to happen, and like I'm open to this. And if you're open to it, then your body accepts it, but if you're not, then that's not going to work for you.
Right.
Like, you know, I feel like a lot of it is just like giving up that sense of control.
Yeah, and that you can only do that through discipline.
Or drugs.
No, even
The more you know.
like I
Some people
did
need a
not
little bit
have
more. It's almost like the drugs are like a push.
Totally.
It's like,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the reason the drugs work is because they mimic the natural production of what our bodies
Can do,
in that
yeah.
state, right? And so Buddhist monks, or I don't know, other religious people who do have like a really good level of like focus that they've trained and developed can get into that state. The interesting thing is that we see a really similar state to that religious experience, to that near-death experience, when we talk about like flow, runner's high. Really extreme sport athletes go into flow all the time, right? And so it's that same sort of we see the same thing in the brain in flow as we do with a religious experience, as we do with a near-death experience, of the brain shutting down, like cognitive function because it takes too much energy.
Right.
We slip into like a sort of subconscious, and our decisions aren't governed by our by our conscious. They're governed by, Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, way back in
Right,
like the
totally.
1970s. And we slip into this area where we're communicating with even other beings on an instantaneous level.
Right.
This shows up actually in quantum physics too, where electrons communicate across distance instantaneously.
And they've actually been able to move light particles through that
Yeah.
because they're still connected.
Right.
Yeah. And so, sorry, lost it. Where was I?
We were talking about
Like things communicating.
Oh,
Well,
right.
like the runner's high and
instantaneously
flow.
across. And so, because flow mimics a religious experience.
cognitive function.
Yeah, I, for me, that's sort of like everything's explainable through biology, and you don't actually need a god.
I mean, like,
I think what you said just ties in all together.
Fair.
but also,
and
like,
I don't disagree with that. And there is a certain amount of, sorry.
no, no, I'm thinking, go off.
Because there is a certain amount of information that's novel that that like came from somewhere else, right? And
Totally.
so when you are in that collective unconscious thing, I was reading, it's called Stealing Fire. It's about using drugs to create altered states. It's this great look at it, at like the culture of it and the revolution that's currently ongoing. But they talked about, in the beginning of the book, about elite military teams and how they sort of blend together into one entity in a way that they sort of just react instantaneously. And one of these retired SEALs was talking about how talking is too slow. Like if you have to sit there and communicate with like your words, it's way too slow and you'll die out there. And so they slip into this sort of collective unconscious, right? Ecstasis, whatever you want to call it. And because of that, they're able to sort of like the electrons, the quantum electrons, right? Share all that information instantaneously, which we see as impossible, but they do it all the time.
Well, I think what you said, like one of the things that you said originally is the most interesting, which was turn off that sense of self, which I think is a big part of it. Because when we were talking about like, I am God, you are God, you are God, anything around us is God, like it's that sense of self that separates us from that oneness.
Yes.
So when you're able to turn off that sense of self, it's not that you don't need God, it's that you then are God.
Yeah.
Right, and we are all God.
I mean, also, in a way, and this is just my standpoint on God, I believe that, like, God is just love.
Totally.
In general. Like, that is the purest form of what love is. If that makes any sense.
No, it completely makes sense.
Like, I don't, and that's why it is literally in all of us, because we are all capable of love.
Right.
And loving. And it is the purest and lightest form. Because, like, I mean, when they say love can heal things, it's so true. It's that purest light, like, energy that is literally healing in more forms than just like physical, mental. Like they even say, like, if you hold someone's hand that you love and you are in pain, the pain literally goes away. Like not instantaneously, but it's just like it does numb it a bit because that feeling of love is just so powerful. And then it's like the same thing, like reverse that with hate. When you feel hate, it's just like everything just fucking crumbles. Like everything, like anxiety goes up, depression, like sadness, like just not to go back into darkness, but like it is the complete opposite form That's why I feel like it took me a really long time to feel like, what is God? Like I'm confused because I don't want to believe that I am God. I want to believe that I am that I am a very powerful being and my spirit is very powerful in that sense that like I have to be careful with what I say, what I do, how I react to others and how people interact with me because I am very sensitive to people and just things in general with my energy. And I'm just like, but like growing up, I was always like, what is God? Like, what is like, and there in every single religion, there is a God.
Yes.
Like that we just spoke about. And it's just like, but what is that one thing that everyone relates to that they think of that is the purest form, which is love.
Right. The closest that I've been ever to be able to describe it is like that feeling like, you know, if you're on a bus and you see like an elderly person struggling to get off and you see someone else get up to help them off and not look around to make sure someone's watching and just because they want to. And you feel that feeling inside when you see something like that. It's just complete warm feeling of pure love. To me, that's God.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's in
exactly.
all of us.
Yeah, and I feel like people can say when they see somebody do something good, they're like, that is God helping that person. That is God doing this. God did that. God did this for me or did that. It's like, no, like yes, but if you actually strip away the word God, it's if you replace it with love, like love did that for that person.
Totally.
Love did this for me. Like, and in that form, I feel like the universe is made of mostly love. You just have to be able to figure out how to connect with it through your own self-love.
Totally. I think one of the coolest things I ever heard was that fear, anxiety, is just something that is present to show you that your opinion of yourself or someone else is different than God's.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool because whenever I have fear, it's usually because I have a lower opinion of myself or of someone else.
I was
than
just
God
thinking
would.
that.
You know?
Yeah, like I feel like when I was at my worst form of anxiety, it was when I thought the lowest of myself. I wasn't like I went from loving myself like not in like a like overly like I'm the way, but like loving myself, like respecting
Purely.
myself. Yes, like being like I am who I am and I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. And I just have so much respect for myself to like overthinking and questioning myself and no longer believing in myself and creating self-hate. And that's what triggered my anxiety. Like the love aspect of myself was gone.
Right.
And that's where my darkest, like, and I had always had like a form of darkness in my life, but this was like real darkness that I had ever felt.
Totally. I
for
feel like
myself.
I'm going through some of that right now. But it's interesting because it's like if you think about the times in your life that you're afraid, it's because you have a fear that you're not capable of XYZ or you have a fear that that person is going to do XYZ. I thought that was such a fascinating way of saying it, that your opinion is lower than God's because God's opinion is always that you're capable of anything.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it was really interesting too, because when I went to therapy and I feel like I realized what I was doing to myself when my therapist actually said like, and there's actually like memes now going around about it, but it's just like, listen to the way you talk to yourself internally.
Totally.
And that is huge. And I never used to like talk down to myself up until I had my anxiety and I was like, stop being such a like, you got this, like, stop doing this, like, you're being, like, this, and this. Like, I would just put myself down whenever my anxiety would hit. I'd be like, stop it, like, you're being, like, such a little right now. Like, you know, it was just, like, I was just attacking myself. And so I was explaining to this because my therapist was like, how do you talk to yourself when your anxiety hits? And so I would explain it to her, and she's like, don't you think that's making it worse? Like, you are literally lowering yourself to yourself. She's like, whenever that happens, I want you to try to switch it and turn it into a positive thing. Like when, like, for example, like in the morning, I literally could not see light. Like if Nick would like open up the drapes and the lights would come in, I want to start crying because it was so like I just didn't want to get out of bed and I was so anxious. So I'd be like, internally.
Yeah.
But then she was like, when that happens, I want you to just be like, it's okay. Thank you for protecting me. Because anxiety is your body protecting you. It's trying to protect you from whatever is going on around you. Like that is
Right, it's trying to make a plan for
exactly
the worst case scenario.
So
Right.
it's like she's like, try being kind to yourself and be like, it's okay, like thank you for trying to protect me, but I got this. And then literally as I started doing that, like it was like a chemical switch just started happening. And it was like through that I started finding the self-love again, where it was like, be so gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
It does matter and it does count. And it's crazy how just doing that over a period of time literally changed my brain chemistry.
Right.
And my anxiety is like, it's not 100% gone, obviously. I get waves of it. But now when it happens, it's like, I just sit there and I'm like, it's okay. Like, we're going to feel this. It's fine. You're human. Like, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you basically placeboed your way into making your brain better. I mean, the placebo effect gets a bad rap, but it's really just the human brain making itself better.
I don't know if I'd call that placebo.
I feel like that's just giving yourself like just self-love again.
Right, because
in
placebo would be like what? Sugar pills that are you're being told there's something else. Whereas I feel like what you're describing is you have complete awareness of what.
Right, and before I would like have rage. Like I would have actual rage towards myself. And then like when I started doing that, and obviously therapy helped a lot, clearly.
Right.
And that was one of the main reasons that everything like started shifting. But it was like the way I was talking to myself, and I would no longer feel this like anger towards myself because I didn't think it was gonna work. To be perfectly honest, I'm like, you really want me to just sit there and like thank myself? Like that's weird.
Right.
But then I started doing it and I was like, that feeling of like anger turned into like, it was almost like calming a storm inside my stomach. Like, and I don't think that was placebo at all. I feel like that
just
was
mean
real.
that you like thought your way better. That's all I meant by it. You thought you were
Right.
to
It's
being
accurate.
better.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's what a placebo effect is, right? You think it's going to make you better, so it does. It's your mind making you better, not the drug.
Right, but I wasn't like...
No, I know, but you thought your way to being better. That's all I meant.
He's just trying to create the argument. That
I know, he's trying to create the placebo thing. I don't
Right.
feel like it was placebo at all. Because I'm also a skeptic when it comes to like stuff like that. Like I didn't even want to go to therapy. I didn't think it was going to work.
Well, I mean, but the act of saying
If you're saying
out
placebo
loud,
in the sense that placebo means that you, in your mind, are creating the healing
Yes.
rather than a pill creating the
Yes.
healing. Yeah,
That's
but I
exactly
feel like
what I
this
mean.
would be a misinterpretation of that word because that would also imply that
It was
she
fake.
thought she was taking something else when she was actually aware that she was healing it with her mind.
but she wasn't aware that she was healing it with her mind. She just said she didn't think it was going to work.
Right.
Right. So it's the same kind of thing. Just the act of changing your brainwave patterns is what healed you, not any sort of medicine or...
I mean, yes.
Because when you were sitting there going, "Thank you, body, for protecting me," that's putting out a different type of brainwave than the alternative.
Because
than the inverse.
you can change your brainwave just by thinking differently with anything.
Yes.
Right.
Like even if you're not conscious that you're doing it. Like I wasn't conscious of the fact that I was giving myself anxiety.
Yeah,
You know
totally.
what I mean?
Right.
Then one day I woke up and I was like, what is this? And I honestly thought I wasn't going to get better. And that was obviously a negative mindset to be in.
Which probably perpetuated the fact that you weren't.
Yeah, which probably
and
kept you from getting better faster.
Totally.
But
Yes, and it prolonged it like crazy, but eventually like it's like I think back to those times when I started doing that and I can still feel the emotion of like when I stopped talking to myself negatively.
yeah.
Because also like placebo is, yes, a form of like, if you believe something can happen, then you can like make your body believe it so and so. But I mean, belief in itself is spirituality.
Right.
Everything about spirituality is just belief. If you believe,
Placebo could be termed spirituality.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like if you believe that this like thing that you're like if you believe your dream board is going to come true,
Totally.
like it's not placebo. That's just a belief, and if it happens, it like people are just going to be like, oh, it was fate or whatever. It's like it's just belief, and you're putting intention into
Sure.
it.
I mean,
It
there's
was my way of
excellent.
thinking myself into success or thinking myself into that becoming
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
There's excellent scientific evidence that says we create our own reality.
Napoleon Hill wrote a book about it in the 30s. I mean, Wallace, well, you'd actually like this. Wallace Wattles wrote The Science of Getting Rich
I probably
way,
would like
way
that.
long ago. And it's all about that same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's about your thought creating your reality.
I feel like
Yeah,
I've created
well-
most of my reality.
Yeah,
I feel like we've all created all of our reality.
yeah, of course.
Well, yeah, but I feel like I've consciously
Oh,
done
yeah.
most of
Yeah.
it. Like
Totally.
where I've been like, I've literally put it down into words and been like this, and then I look back and it's all checked off, and I'm just
Right.
like, oh, it was. Like I didn't even know it was happening, but hey, here we are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. On the quantum physical level, the what I was talking about before, electrons communicating across distance. Electrons are super interesting because they have what's called quantum superposition, which means they are everywhere at once and nowhere. And then the only way you ever know where an electron is by measuring it. But the argument is that by measuring it, you put it there. Because it was the best analogy that I've been able to come across for this is there's a coin and it's flipping in a vacuum. Like you take a coin into space and you flip it. It's going to keep flipping forever until something stops it. So it's neither heads nor tails until you stop it and look at it. So you stopping it is what made it heads, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the same with electrons and therefore matter. Like for matter to exist, quantum physics says that there has to be an observer. Mm-hmm. And that's the same with energy, because matter and energy are just expressions of the same, two different expressions of the same thing. And so this goes all the way back to the Big Bang. There can't have been a Big Bang without functioning quantum mechanics, and there can't be quantum mechanics without an observer. So that suggests that there was an entity at the Big Bang that by observing the Big Bang caused it to happen. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I mean,
Sorry.
It does make sense in the sense that, like, I feel like what you're describing in science is also what we are talking about and what people talk about with spirituality.
I was gonna say
It's
everything
really
that
the
you're
same thing.
saying, I'm just like I'm literally translating it in my head as spirituality.
Me too. I mean, the fact that like literally what you're saying is in so many spiritual textbooks and spiritual books, which is that everything is there.
Yeah.
You put whatever it is that you want into your vortex. And what you don't want, and what, like, you by thinking about what you don't want, that's also in there.
Right.
So everything that you think is in your vortex, and anything in the entire physical and metaphysical, non-physical world is there for you to create. I mean, Think and Grow Rich literally talks about how, like, if you want a new computer. I mean, they don't talk about this actually, computer, because it wasn't around then. It wasn't around then, but like I forget what they use as the example, but like I'm going to use computer.
Yeah.
Then no, for the idea isn't that you just sit there and stare at the wall and the computer will appear, but the idea is that you putting it out there causes it to start to move toward you.
Yeah.
Yes, like
if
gravity.
If you put your intention out there of like what you want, life is going to start throwing you these things where it's like, hey, do you want, like, things are going to start coming to you, and it's your choice to take the chances.
And you align.
And you align with like what the like next decisions you make align with the end goal. And there are multiple roads that lead there, but you just keep choosing along the way.
Cool. But that's not God.
No, I never.
Yeah.
We're not saying.
No, I
that
know.
never said that
I know,
was God.
No, I know. But
Well, I mean, or is it?
from
I mean,
from a
universe
religious
is
standpoint,
God.
if we're all gods, but that's like our conscious, like human body, brain, prefrontal cortex doing that. Like if you're sitting down and writing down your goals,
And your
that's
subconscious. I mean, that, yes. You sitting down and writing your goals is your conscious.
yes, right.
You are
And
also
so
doing
you're-
it with your subconscious, because unfortunately we bring a lot of things to us that we don't want
right.
through our subconscious.
Or things that we end up getting, like the end goal, and we are like choosing things subconsciously on how to get there. And then when we get there, we're like, oh, like, I didn't even realize that that's how I got here.
Right.
Totally.
Because you're doing it along the way, because it's like your mind has a goal.
Or you're putting your energy is, your focus is on something, so you're putting that out there, and that's what you're bringing toward yourself.
Yeah.
But you could call that God. I mean, it's the universe
I
working to create what you're asking for.
Or what you love, depending
or
if
to
it,
create God itself.
You lost me on that one.
yeah, what?
Because I guess in the same way that for God to exist, there has to be an observer, and that's us. At least we can go into this other state, go into another realm, go on a DMT trip and experience God and observe God. And by doing so, that's how we created it in the first place.
Wait,
I don't know. There's
I don't know.
Wait,
This is
what?
a hard.
Are
not
you
super
saying, like-
clear on this idea?
Are you saying like God is like what is with you, aka like whatever you believe is with you along this journey to getting what you're set on? Because that makes sense.
Yes, and I guess in a way,
Because
I'm still chicken
your
and egging
intention
God.
is what is driving you, and intention can be like you're doing it with purity, which could also translate to
so
God.
when Christianity was founded, the intention was whatever it was, but the result was the creation of the Christian God.
I mean, I have no idea what that intention is.
I don't know much about Christianity. I know like Jesus was a thing.
Yeah, Jesus
Right.
was a thing.
Like but I also know that like everyone, like allegedly everyone warped. All he was trying to do was like make everybody coexist and bring love and unity and peace.
Right.
And everyone basically played telephone with his words and was like,
Yeah.
well, he's dead now, so we're just gonna take over.
Right. Right. I mean, the Gospels weren't even written by the people who they
Were
claim to have
there.
been written by.
Exactly.
Matthew wasn't written by Matthew.
It's just
Right.
it's just an order. It's just to keep people in order.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
It's
that's
also
all it
just a
is.
lot of stories that have been told from the beginning of time and were
Yes.
passed down orally and are in Egyptian hieroglyphy. How do you say it?
Hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs.
Was that going to be a bubble? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
And hieroglyphs.
But I mean, I think I kind of understand what you're saying, which is an interesting concept. Which, if you look at Eckhart Tolle wrote a book. Well, he wrote several.
Yes.
But there's a book that he wrote where he talks about the first flower blooming.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually kind of goes into that kind of the observer thing of like, no one was there to see it, but it still did happen. The first flower did bloom. In a world where there were no flowers blooming, in a world where it was all just plants, and eventually a flower opened up and bloomed.
He's just gonna say that like
It's a
a
new earth.
meteor hit and then the chemicals created flowers and the flowers started
Sorry, that
blooming.
was in the book
and
A
then
New
the
Earth.
dinosaurs ate the flowers and then here we are. Like go
there's
off. I know you're
scientific-
about to.
There's scientific reason, I'm sure, for that, but I'm still saying that like
I-
was
yeah.
anyone there to observe it?
Right.
I
get, like, the,
You could argue that the flower itself was there to
Yeah.
observe it because the flower's alive.
The example.
So then God itself is there to observe God.
Sure. I mean, if there's
Because
an
it's
all
an
powerful
energetic being.
Yeah, there's an all powerful energetic entity out there. Presumably, it observes the whole universe at once.
So it observes
Which is
itself.
which is what? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wait, so are we talking about God as like it's an entity or are we talking about it as like an energy? Because I talk about it like an energy.
An
I'm talking about
energetic
it
entity.
as
Because-
an energetic entity.
So I don't. I feel like this is where we are splitting.
Fair.
Because
No,
I
to
don't
go back to like the
I
Big
don't
Bang
feel like-
example. It has to be an entity. Otherwise, nothing was there to observe the Big Bang.
Aliens? What are you talking about? Oh my wait, what?
Right, I'm a little confused on that.
I like that you're trying, though.
Sorry.
I know, I do.
Okay, so
We're
the
like
idea
creating your
is-
own situation.
Right.
Sorry, I probably didn't explain it clearly because I don't understand it that clearly because it's quantum physics. But
Which no one understands.
Yeah,
that
so
clearly.
we don't, you lost us at quantum.
sorry. Okay, so the idea of quantum superposition again, the coin flipping in a vacuum, right? The coin exists, but heads or tails don't really exist until you stop it, until you stop the coin
But
from
don't
moving.
they both still
and-
exist because
Yes.
they're on the coin?
Yes.
So why does choosing
but
what
it's-
side matter?
So it's just an analogy to understand like the positioning of electrons, because electrons are a physical particle, right? And so protons and neutrons are in the nucleus of an atom, right? And we can always identify their energy and their position. Electrons are different. Electrons, we can only identify their energy or their position.
Yes.
And so basically the idea is that by observing reality, we cause the electrons to be in the spaces that they are in. And so we bring reality into existence.
That goes into a whole nother thing of like alternate realities and
Oh, yeah.
The idea-
we are not on that.
What? I know we are definitely on that.
Wait, so are you talking about your DMT trip still?
No, I'm not.
Because I'm lost.
Well, alternate realities.
It's another way
Wait,
to
so
understand
where-
this is like multiverse theory.
So are you saying that like in order for these multiverses to exist, God has to be watching and God therefore has to be an entity?
Yes.
Okay. So cleared that up. So what do you, okay, from everything that you've heard, listened to with us,
Right.
read about and tripped on, what do you think
That's a good-
God is?
I have no idea.
Well, here we go.
I mean, I don't either.
Well, yeah, but I know, I mean, but like we have our opinions on it.
Right. I have experience of things that.
But what do you like think, like what do you believe it is so far? Or what could you
Also,
explain God to be
I would
for
just
yourself?
like to say, to me, it doesn't sound like you're atheist. It sounds like you're agnostic.
I'm not agnostic because agnostic means you don't care either way. I'm atheist because I'm anti-theology.
But atheist is even
Atheist believes in no God, though. It's not like
Yeah.
atheist is like. See, I always thought agnostic was. I hear you on the don't care, and I'm not saying that, but like I always thought agnostic was like, I don't necessarily believe or not believe in a God. Whereas atheist is, I strongly believe that there is no God.
and we die and that's it, and then like our spirits
I do
do
think
nothing.
we die and that's it.
But our spirits do nothing.
Depends
You
what you mean
just
by
said that
spirit.
energy cannot be created
Exactly.
or destroyed.
Correct.
So if energy cannot be created or destroyed,
Well, we
So you
aren't
believe in a
us
spirit.
anymore when we die.
So you are no longer
Like,
atheist.
You are not- you are not
I am an atheist.
well, you might not be your physical
Do
form.
you? But also, do you?
No, but we're not us at all.
I feel like you're also categorizing yourself when it like since now you do like you're thinking about spirituality in the sense of like, you know, you're saying energy is not destroyed or like it can't be destroyed, right? So I mean, I feel like, how do I word this without like broadening your idea of it because you are so stuck on the idea of wanting to be atheist?
No, I don't really care that much about the atheist label. I just think it's the closest thing. I don't think there's a good word for what I believe. I just think atheist is the closest word to it.
But I don't think you're atheist.
I don't either.
Like everything you're explaining is not atheist.
Totally.
Like Bill Maher is
No,
atheist.
okay.
He's like, this, there's no God, we all die,
Right.
that's it.
Let's take the example of like a star dying, because let's just pretend for the moment that a star is conscious. That star is going to supernova. It'll explode. All of its particles and energy will end up in other stars eventually, but that star is dead. That's it.
But it becomes a black hole.
Some of them do.
Some of them do.
Only if they're big enough.
Right. So if it becomes a black hole, I wouldn't say that that's it.
Yeah, that
But
seems
for
like
some stars, it
actually
is.
the most
And black holes die
powerful-
too. Black holes will go through their cycle.
the
they'll run
universe
out of
is ever
energy, and they'll
expanding.
black holes will also die.
But the universe is ever expanding.
But
Yeah,
it
so-
might be slowing down now. There's evidence for that. Well, I mean,
I'm sure there is
There's a
evidence for
debate.
that. I'm
There's a
sure there's
debate
also
about whether or
evidence
not
for
it's
it
still.
speeding up, and I'm sure there's also evidence for. I know I'm having the same.
Yeah, is everyone glitching?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just thought it was my headphones.
we can take a break.
I feel like it's
This is a
fine.
good spot to take a break, actually.
Okay, yeah, we can take a break.
Okay, we'll be back after these words from our sponsor. Okay, we're back. Thanks for bearing with us.
You want to talk about death,
I think
But-
But we just talked about.
but we
that.
just talked about it because you said that your spirit, like energy, doesn't die, right? Is that
But
where you
part
want to
of
go with this?
Part of you gets eaten by the worms, but not all of you.
I mean, that's
Yes.
fine because that's just your
That's
your
your shell.
vessel. Yeah.
Yeah.
but your consciousness vanishes?
Oh.
No.
Probably.
What?
Why do you think probably? Like, what scientific evidence do you have that anything can vanish? If you just said energy cannot be created or destroyed.
It transfers into another form.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's not your consciousness anymore.
Well, that again, I would say that goes back again to the idea of what you talked about earlier when you talked about how people attain the flow state when they are able to somehow turn off the part that individualizes their self.
Sure.
So
yeah.
what if that consciousness goes into the higher consciousness?
Right. And yeah, it probably does, but what I'm getting at is it's not yours anymore. Like when
What is
say
you?
like
What is you? And like that again, that whole individualized, that's a human thing.
Are you like
Sure,
trying to like
but
Bruce Almighty us?
well, no, I mean each living entity has a consciousness, right? And I think there's some scientists who split it up into like levels. So plants are level 1 and animals are level 2 and then we're level 3. And then if there's beings that are like multidimensional, they're maybe like level 4 or 5 or whatever.
I gotta say, part of me thinks that animals are possibly more conscious than we are because
Honestly.
they're always in the flow.
But also
yeah,
like
because they don't have the analytical part.
They are energy though. Like they are full energy.
Totally, and they're always going based on their instinct, and they're just in the flow. They're in the middle of the vortex all the time.
And like most like especially like abused animals like dogs and whatever else people have adopted, most of them seem to have like unconditional love.
Totally.
Like they know how to love before humans.
And
sometimes.
they're fully like they're almost pretty much the definition of
love,
presence
yeah.
and love. Because if you think about like a dog, when you come back in, it doesn't matter if you've been gone for like 5 hours or 5 minutes. You come in that door and they are the most excited to see you that they have ever been.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I love you, you love me, we're both here, and I'm excited.
And I'm gonna pee.
And I'm gonna pee on the floor. I'm gonna pee on the floor to show you just how excited I am.
So like literally another meme where it's like, do any of your friends get so excited
That they pee when they see you?
Yeah,
That's a good meme.
it's so true.
I actually, in this moment, feel somewhat
Like
less loved by my friends
Yeah,
than I
now
thought
I'm
I
angry.
was.
Now I'm angry.
Because no one has peed when they saw me that I'm aware of, unless they just haven't told me.
Yeah, like
Would you volunteer that information if you
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people when I do things that are embarrassing.
That's fair.
I want to
guess
be like so excited that when I see somebody I pee. Like that's
Yeah.
like
we should all aspire to that.
we should all.
I do aspire to that. Actually, I saw a Grey's Anatomy once where she was so excited about a surgery that she wore a diaper. And I was like, I want to be so committed to something that I have to wear a diaper to get through it. You know what I mean?
Dead.
That's what I want.
Here we go.
Amazing.
That's what I want.
No, I didn't necessarily want to talk about death super heavily, but I think it plays into the whole idea, especially with people who have like near-death experiences and they go
Like
through
your DMT experience.
I mean, yeah, but also no. Like in DMT, there's no like, or at least for me, there wasn't like a tunnel of light. And that's what most people describe when they have like a near-death experience. But again, I feel like it's explainable like biologically. Because when you have a near-death experience, your body increases production of DMT naturally, and a handful of other neurochemicals. And the reason DMT is similar but isn't the same as a near-death experience is because of the other neurochemicals your body's creating. So you get in a near-death experience, you get oxytocin, which is the bond-forming chemical that makes us like love one another, and serotonin, which is similar, but it's like the closeness chemical. It's more found in like friendship attachments than romantic entanglements. But there's no like street version of oxytocin. There's a street version of serotonin, which I believe is MDMA. But the idea is that your body is creating these states, and it's not like an actual state. Like you're not going up to visit God. Your body is just making dying less scary for you.
Well, yeah, because it's like an overflow of like euphoria in order for you to like not be scared when it happens, which I think is kind of cool that your body's just like, and this is going to be fun. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kind of nice.
it is. But
That's a loving way to go.
Right, totally. I mean, I guess I never thought of it that way, as your body's making it less scary. I more thought of it as you're connecting to something, or you're transcending limitations that previously you weren't able to transcend in your body.
Or you're like, now you're, maybe that's when people like, it's kind of sad to think about it, but it's like when people are like, you know, they're finally free.
Totally.
It makes total sense.
Right.
Like you're free of your vessel and or your shell that, you know, held whatever issues it had, or
And the
it was
limitations
just
it
done.
placed on
yeah,
it.
and you're like out of that cage per se. Mm-hmm. That's why it's like, thinking about it that way, I feel like it makes you really want to do whatever the you want on this earth.
Totally.
yeah. What about reincarnation? Do either of you believe in reincarnation, and how do you perceive it if you do?
That's a hard one.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I go kind of with the, like, I'm very comfortable with the not knowing thing. Like,
Yeah.
I could see it being a thing.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah, like, I'm okay with the fact that I don't have a solid opinion. Like, I'm so comfortable in the fact that I don't know so much about life and, like, won't know, and there's no way to know, that I'm really comfortable in that unknown. But, like, I'm not like you in that way. Like, if I turn on a light switch, I don't need to know what happens to make that light come on.
Fair, yeah.
I just trust it's going to come on. But, like, I really have no interest in the ins and outs of the wiring.
Cool.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, I also believe in spirituality, and I do a lot of research and studying on that, and in terms of what I believe in, like, frequency and you know, aligning yourself to the proper vibrations, and not proper, because that implies that there
are incorrect ones.
Yeah. Just like whatever I feel good, what makes you feel good, you know. But I don't know on reincarnation. I think it's a really interesting theory. Like I find it fascinating. I know a lot of people, and I'm close to a lot of people who have had past life regression, and who have done that work, and who very much believe in it. I have personally seen a psychic who told me that when I was a kid, I used to write very prolifically. Like, I wrote 2 12-chapter books before I was like 6, and I read all the time, and then I kind of just stopped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that psychic told me that in the past life before this one, I was a writer, and a very prolific writer. Like, I wrote a lot, but I could never figure out how to put the soul of a character into that character. And that's why in this life I came back as an actor.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was really cool.
Yeah.
He literally rolled his eyes. It's amazing. He goes, and then he batted his eyelashes as he took a sip from his tea.
It's
You know
okay.
what I mean?
We talked shit about his quantum
Right.
physics, so it's fine.
There's to go back to multiverse theory, because there's part of multiverse theory that like all your consciousnesses exist at once in different parallel universes, right? So when one of your consciousnesses dies, you get reincarnated as yourself in another universe, but because there are infinity universes.
Oh God, no. No. I can't.
This is why I wanted to talk about
Good
death.
with just like one and done, huh?
I can't with you.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, that's the whole thing.
That was the whole thing.
Also, my mic is hating me.
I was gonna say, is your back okay? And we're back.
And we're back.
So is the eye roll that you don't, because I mean, it's interesting to me that you could believe in something like reincarnation in infinity universes, but not
in the same
in-
universe.
in one.
But
Yeah.
but what if her soul was actually shifting from the other universe to this
Into
one?
this one.
And
That's
it,
what
and
she
it
was trying to
wasn't
say, I
done.
think.
And it was still, because there's a lot of
I
stories
didn't
of
say I believed the theory.
I know, but like, you don't have as strong of hatred as you do, the eye roll would indicate, of this psychic's theory.
he doesn't like the psychic part.
Really?
I
It's
really
that-
don't.
It's just the psychic part.
Psychic?
Because was it in LA?
It was in a town like an hour and a half outside of LA.
That's why he's having a fit.
But if I saw her in New York, that would be acceptable.
No. Can I ask you? She knew about your writing as a child. You told her. Mm-hmm.
Wait, you told her, or did she just know?
No, I told her.
Only she just knew.
Even if she just knew, it would have been a guess. But I don't know. It's too easy. It's like, oh, you were a writer as a kid, so you were a writer in a past life.
Well, I didn't say that I believed it. I just thought it was interesting.
No, it is
in
interesting.
terms of reincarnation and possibilities as to why we might be reincarnated, possibilities as to the journey continuing in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know that I believe it. I mean, I have discovered recently that I am very prone to look for answers outside of myself, in the sense that I've been going through this, like we talked about earlier, like this major shift recently. And I noticed that I had an aversion to writing, which is interesting because when I was younger, I used to write all the time, in the sense that people would be like, oh, have you journaled about it? Or have you written about it? You know, whatever. And I would be like, no, it's okay. I'm just going to try and like find a book on it, or a podcast on it, or watch a YouTube video on it, or find something some other spiritual teacher had already said on it. And I didn't understand why I didn't want to, like, I wanted to look for the answers everywhere else. And what it came down to is that I didn't believe, for whatever reason, or I had stopped believing that I had them in myself.
Right.
And I think for me, like, all of this stuff is really fascinating and it's really interesting and I love hearing about it. But ultimately, your answers have to come from you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, of course.
Like, you are your own pendulum.
Totally.
And that's literally how they work. It's like, I don't know if you guys know much about pendulums. You probably do. Yeah. You probably know. But like,
They use them in shops with psychics and
I'm aware.
yeah, but like,
I'm aware of the phenomenon, but I don't believe in it.
well, I mean,
shocker.
it's, yeah, not shocked. But it's like, I had no idea, like, when I first went into a crystal shop and my friend was like, oh, like, I need a new pendulum. And I'm like, what is that? I thought they were bracelets, like, dead ass. I was like, that's a cool bracelet. Like, how do you put it on?
Yeah.
But it looks like a really big, like, crystal.
Kind of heavy.
I was like, yeah, how do you wear that? And I'm like trying to put that on.
yeah.
Amazing.
And the lady comes over and she's like, oh, no. You ask it questions. And I'm like,
I asked my wrist.
lady.
Right.
Like, listen. Because, like, I'm a spirit person, but, like, there are still things that I'm new to. And I don't really, like, get into them unless I've physically, like, you know, have experienced it myself. I've had the one lady rip me right off when I first moved to LA, who was like this psychic, she wasn't psychic, she was a color reader,
Like auras?
dude, no, she says that she literally could like see like colors, but she could see auras, but like she could read you as a color. And then she told me like all this weird stuff. And I was like...
Was that the advertisement that made you go in? Color reader? Right?
Well, no, it was like she just... she stressed me out. Okay, like I like went to her like shop, whatever. And she was like, she had like this chow dog, and she was like, oh, he was a sphinx back when I lived in Egypt in my past life. And I'm like, lady, like go off, like do you, like yes, like if that's what you believe, yes, but what the and she like her walls were painted in only 24 karat gold, and like she was a queen fairy in like this alternate world. And like she started telling me things that I didn't really correlate with. And she was like, I just laid there, and she just like did some stuff like with herbs and like incense and this and that. And I'm like, that's cool, whatever, it's relaxing. Now we're 250 though. She's like, oh, at the end, did you see like a purple light? And I was like, lady, my eyes were closed. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And she just literally bootlegged out of me. And I was like, okay, this sucks. And the second time I went to a psychic in LA, I went for a reason for somebody else, because I wanted, like, they needed closure on something. And I was like, I can't give it to you, but maybe this person can if you believe it, you know? Mm-hmm. So, like, I went, and it wasn't about me. And literally, I sat there, and she's, like, trying to read me. She's like, so, and I'm like, it's not about me. Like, literally, I was like, it's not about me. And she literally starts to like try to read me, and I'm like, she got everything wrong, dude. She was like, you can draw. And I was like, I can't even draw a stick figure right. Like, what? And she's like going off about like these things that don't correlate with me at all. And I'm like, bro. Like, I was like, this looks so bad because I just brought my friend here.
Did she get closure?
I don't think they did. Yeah. I think it was the gesture that counted.
Right.
Because it was Mother's Day and they were sad. And,
that was nice.
And I was like, maybe we can go talk to your mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet.
And so I tried to do that, and then the lady tried talking to me, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
It's like I was trying to get it to be genuine. But yeah, so back to the pendulum bracelet. So I'm over there like trying to put this on. And then my friend is there, and she's like, oh yeah, like this is, and you hold it by like the ball at the very top, because you can't sway the ball. The ball is like just chilling, and like no matter if you like, unless you really jolt your hand, it just kind of like flows on its own. And then they're like telling me to start asking it yes or no questions. And the moment it started moving on its own, I freaked the out. I was like, bruh, did I do that right? Was that me? Right. And they're just like, it's like, literally, it's all your answers.
Right.
Like exactly, everything you need to know as far as like right and wrong, yes or no. But I think it's really crazy that we have physical form things that can like prove that to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it sounds great when you describe it like that, but the way it's been described to me before is like your spirit guides are summoned and they tell you the answers.
It's whatever you want it to be. You can ask for higher beings or a family member or
Because
somebody
it makes
who's
much more
passed
sense the
on.
way you just described it to me. Like your
that's
body,
what- yeah.
your subconscious knows the answer to every question, and when you ask, you're basically like funneling energy down to the pendulum, and the energy comes up with the answer, which makes a lot more sense than your dead grandmother coming up with the answer.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you can ask for somebody to come through, but I feel like at the end of the day, you don't even need that. You are your best like answer, I
Right.
guess.
Well, spirit guides, I mean, that's a whole different, like,
That's a
spirit
whole other
guides,
realm.
and yeah, that's a whole different thing. But, like, ultimately, any of those things are there to help you to find your own answers.
Yeah.
No one's, I mean, at least my interpretation of and what I have studied and believe personally is that the highest good and God, you know, divine love, whatever, it's inside of you. And so everything is there to guide you to find that connection, because it's also outside of you. It's in everyone else. It's what is, you know, I mean, you could even say it's like the matter that makes up the empty space, depending on what you believe. But it's all there to help align you to divine love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I believe.
But like, I feel like going back to believing in reincarnation, I think that it could be, I think it for sure it's possible. I mean, like, especially like younger children who have all these like weird talents that they were just born with, or like things just click for them, and it's just, or it comes from like, or they know things from like history that people are like, how the heck did you know that? You don't even know how to read. Like, you know, like that stuff like trips me out.
Right.
But like, as far as like, I feel like even if we are not reincarnated into a human every time, I feel like our spirit has different levels, like going back to like the levels. And when you have, in every life, whatever the life of whatever you go into is there to keep elevating your spiritual knowledge and heighten your like spirit. And then like you, and every life is a different lesson to complete your soul. You are constantly learning different things in different lives in order to not complete, but like higher your soul, and like kind of like putting the pieces of the puzzle together until you do become that higher being, or like the highest form of self. And then you are just one with the universe. That's what I believe.
No, I have no room to question it. I guess what's bouncing around in my head is like this idea of like one soul that reincarnates, but it's also part of the whole entity, energy, like whatever, but it's also separate. And I don't know, I guess the quantum superposition of our soul being separate and together at the same time is tripping me out.
You mean like it being in our bodies versus being out in the universe?
No, I think he means like the idea that if we once we lose our physical body, right? Like that then, if you know, it's just like a oneness, you know, of everything, but then how can at the same time as it's one with everything else, how could at the same time it have its own individualized self enough to reincarnate again?
Bingo.
Oh, okay.
I understand that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. But I feel like
Right.
that's where I was just trying. I was trying to explain that, like, I feel like you don't ever lose. Like, I feel like in a way I'm a super old soul, and I can't really explain it. Like, I feel like my soul has lived a long ass time. And when I picture the universe, like, I can actually like picture it. and and I can picture things that I've never experienced in weird ways. And I feel like I can communicate with the universe as like a one-on-one thing, just in myself. I mean, that sounds like, everyone's different, but that's why I feel like every life of, you don't have to be a human every time. You could be something else in a different dimension. You could be a human in a different dimension. You could be a being in a different dimension of in a sense, we're all aliens if you really think about it. Like, we're aliens to other things out there. So what if we have to go through different dimensions and different forms of life in order to complete a full soul?
I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I think for me, it goes back to because that's a really good point about the separateness and the oneness at the same time. I think it goes back to there are going to be things that I'm not going to understand because it requires an understanding of information or knowledge on a level that I don't have a capacity to, or perhaps I do and I just haven't tapped into it yet. I'm not sure.
Yeah, or we're not supposed to in this realm.
Right, or it's possible, or it's
we are
not.
literally
You just don't
blocked.
know.
Yeah, because I feel like this is such a young planet, and we are such a young species, the life that we were put into, that our brains can only hold so much. Or if you want to obviously expand it, it takes a ton of discipline. And maybe that purpose in this life is to find that discipline.
Right. There is a theory that it is the souls choosing the human life that causes the expansion of the universe.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's an Abraham Hicks. It's Abraham Hicks said it. It's like that, because of the oneness of pure love, that's stable, it's stationary, it doesn't move, it's constant. But part of what causes the expansion of the universe is souls' choices to come into physical human form and experience the contrast, because that's what we're here to experience, is the contrast. What we know what we do want half the time just by knowing what we don't want.
Yeah,
right.
And that's where the energy goes. Cool. I think we're gonna wrap up because this is well over an hour at this point. But
the usual.
Thank you so much for coming on, Megan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Did you have anything else you want to cover? Am I cutting off too soon?
Not that I. No. Do you have any questions?
Does
anybody have any
questions? I don't
questions?
think we're gonna answer them all. Sitting here and a lot of it is going to require science kind of coming back, which it's starting to include religion instead of being this sort of opposite force. Because I don't believe science and religion, spirituality are opposite forces.
If anything, they've come most recently, they've actually proven spirituality through science in a lot of forms.
Certainly, yeah.
Recently.
Totally. And I think quantum physics only furthers that. In terms of the movement, in terms of everything constantly being moving, and the whole theories with electrons and all of that. I believe very much that it does.
Yeah. I feel like religion is very much by a book, and the thing with spirituality is there is no book. It's and everybody is experiencing it differently. So it's also from your own perspective. So no one can tell you your spiritual beliefs are wrong,
right?
Because they're not you,
right? I feel like that's
what's
the whole
cool
thing.
about it.
There is no right and wrong with spirituality. Truth is individualized, so your truth is your truth. It doesn't have any bearing on my truth, and it's not right or wrong.
Yeah, or boundaries.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been #Wild. You can follow this one at Maggie Davis on Instagram. You can follow us at #WildPod on Instagram. Thanks so much. Leave a like and a comment. Tell us what you think about all of this. I would love to hear other perspectives as I continue to shape mine. My name's Matt.
I'm Susanna.
I'm Megan.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.